Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah.
Welcome
Please
back,
tell me all the
everybody,
bad
to That
good for my-
Effin' Sports Show. We have started a new thing going all the way up to the beginning of the season. We're going to go through every division, every team, kind of do a quick rundown of their schedule, try and figure out records, figure out who's going to be there, and we're going to do our best to ruin the season for you before it ever starts. You're in luck because we brought along one of the best. We brought along Adam Hulse from Adam Hulse Sports like we always do. Adam, welcome back for another one. Atlanta today.
Atlanta today, and let me just say, we opened up this series with the Carolina Panthers, and for the viewers, like, if you want a hot take right off the bat, go back and listen to that Carolina Panthers, because Chris predicted something with the Panthers that I did not see coming.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people see that coming. We'll see.
A hot take right off the bat. I love it.
In this division yet. We're not done in this division yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go back and listen to that. That's good. So Atlanta has made, some changes. I don't know if they made enough changes, but of course they bring in this prolific rusher. This guy's supposed to be generational is the big word. And so we're expecting big things from Atlanta.
I mean, I don't know if we're expecting big things from Atlanta. I think they can be a little bit better this year. I mean, they're going through the rebuild. They're taking their time doing it. They're going slow. Arthur Blank is like the type of owner that, like, he's okay with being patient and doing it the right way. He's not like putting the pressure on to win right now. So, they're just adding pieces and trying to do it the right way.
Yeah, it's definitely a rebuild. One of the other key phrases we like to use in this game is temper expectations. I think this is probably one of those teams that we can throw that on. We already discussed Carolina.
We had Atlanta winning week one.
We did?
Yes. I definitely picked Atlanta to win week one. The rushing game was the reason that I gave for it. Two quarterbacks basically kind of in the same spot with an adjustment period. I think that Atlanta can rely and lean on their rushing game a lot more than Carolina can, and that's why I'll give it to Atlanta week one.
We talked about that on the last show. Give Atlanta the win at home in their first home game. Game two, we spent some time on the Carolina-Green Bay matchup, and now we have Atlanta against Green Bay. Once again, Green Bay travels to the south to Atlanta. I'm not sure if Green Bay is going to have everything figured out by then. You talked about, can Green Bay create a third legacy around Love? That remains to be seen, but I don't think it starts necessarily in game two, having to travel to Atlanta. I actually have Atlanta winning this one.
I feel like this game is not so much about the quarterbacks. It's going to be more, again, about the rushing game and the defenses. I think that there's a little bit better chemistry on the Packers because they have a lot more returning and a lot less changes during the offseason, minus the quarterback position. So I'm going to give it to the Packers because of their continuity.
I like it. I like it when we disagree. I should have opened with the fact that Atlanta had the 25th worst pass defense and the 23rd worst rush defense. And they've made some changes. I don't know if they've really upgraded those numbers a lot, but we'll kind of talk about that as we keep going. They travel to Detroit for game three. And Detroit is one of the sexier teams to watch this year. I think they're going to have a lot of bandwagon support this year, deservedly so. I think Detroit beats Atlanta in Detroit's own dome.
Detroit really came on towards the end of last year. They looked good. They made a couple of moves during the offseason. This is supposed to be the year that Detroit makes the playoffs. And if they're going to make the playoffs, they're going to have to beat teams like the Falcons. So give me Detroit.
Then it's hopping on a plane, traveling across the pond to face Jacksonville in London. Jacksonville is always playing these games. I think they're more conditioned for it. I don't know if Atlanta's going to be conditioned for it. I don't think Atlanta's ready for Jacksonville regardless of where they play. But just the fact that they're going across the pond, if they were even teams, which they are not, I still think Jacksonville wins this one pretty easily.
Weird things have happened in the London games, and a lot of times in those, overseas games, it's not the outcome that you thought. But in this one, I do think the Jags get it done because I think they're for real this year.
100%. Houston comes into Atlanta. We get Stroud. I'm just not high on Houston. I want Houston to do well. They do have Breece Hall back, and so I think that does help against rush defense that doesn't do well. Originally, I think I had Atlanta with the win against Houston. It's just so close. And I mean this because I think they're both just not ready yet. I actually switched it and gave Houston the win. I think Houston wins this one.
I don't see Houston winning very many games at all this year. I kind of like the direction they're heading with the head coaching hire, with the quarterback, with some of the offseason moves, but I just don't think this is going to be a good year for Houston. I think it's going to be ugly. I think they're going to be one of the top teams in the draft again next year. So I'll give this one to Atlanta.
Washington comes to town. I'm going to let you start on this one. It's your division.
I think Washington's going to be an absolute disaster this year. I just said I think Houston's going to be one of the top teams picking in the draft. I feel the same way about Washington. I actually think there's a very good chance Washington could have the number 1 pick next year because I don't believe in Sam Howell at all. I don't care what they're trying to sell us from their PR department that they believe in Sam Howell. I don't think they believe in Sam Howell. I think they're tanking more than anything, even with this new ownership and this, that, and whatever. I think they go quarterback next year. Give this one to Atlanta.
Promise you, once we get over to the NFC East and we start talking about these guys, you're not going to get a lot of wins out of me from Washington. And that goes for this one. No. Atlanta wins at home. Then they go to Tampa. Not a big believer in Baker. We're going to get into that once we hit the Tampa show. This is one of the ones. I think Baker can do it. I think that the teams are just bad enough. I know you kind of have a lot of belief in Tampa this year, more than I do. So I'm interested to see your take.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I have a lot of belief in Tampa. The way I feel about Tampa is I don't think that they're a very good team compared to the rest of the NFL, but they are pretty good compared to this relatively weak division. And I think they're going to do well in their divisional games, and I do give them the win in this one.
So agreement there. Then they go to Tennessee. So first they went to Tampa, take the L. Then they're going to go to Tennessee. We talked in the Carolina show. We'll probably mention this quite a lot in these episodes as Tennessee comes up. The Tennessee team without an identity right now. We don't know how the quarterback situation is going to play out. Best rush defense last year, worst pass defense last year as well. Just kind of all over the place. They definitely can flash. They definitely have talent. I actually have Tennessee flash in this one against Atlanta as they're trying to figure everything out. I give Tennessee the win.
Yeah, surprisingly, I'm actually going to agree with you. I don't like Tennessee at all this season because of, especially right now, the question marks. Which one of the 3 quarterbacks is playing and when is that going to happen with this, Malik Willis, Will Levis, Ryan Tannehill? Is Derrick Henry getting traded or is he staying on the team? There's a lot of messes going on in Tennessee right now, but Tennessee's one of those weird teams where, I never feel good about Tennessee, but, minus last year and a few years before that, they kept churning out these great records. They were the 1 seed in the AFC the one year. I think they're going to find a way to get this one done at home, though I don't like their outlook for the full season.
Agreed. Minnesota comes into town. I think, again, Minnesota's offense is just more than Atlanta's defense can handle. I give Minnesota the win.
I agree. I give Minnesota the win. I don't think they're going to be as good record-wise this year as they were last year, but they are still a much better team than Atlanta, and I think they'll win the game.
Then they travel to Arizona. Arizona is another one of those teams that I don't think is doing a lot to get better. How do you feel about Atlanta going to Arizona?
Big question with Atlanta, of course, is when and if Kyler Murray is going to play, right? The rest of the team, the rest of the roster, it's hard to like too much about that Cardinals roster in general. Till we really know when and if Kyler's going to play, I'm actually going to give Atlanta the win in this one with the assumption that Murray's not going to be in there.
I actually did the exact same thing for almost the exact same reason. Atlanta gets a much needed bye week. Then they welcome New Orleans. New Orleans and Atlanta is one of those matchups where it doesn't really matter how either team is playing. It's almost like on Ohio State, Michigan. Somebody could be number 1, someone could be unranked, and they're both going to ball out and you're going to get a game. So I think regardless of the records, regardless of how bad they are, the Atlanta-New Orleans matchups are always kind of fun to watch. With New Orleans coming in, it's late in the season. Atlanta is coming off the bye, but I think New Orleans is going to be decent this year as Carr takes the helm of that team, and I actually give Atlanta the loss.
Yeah, you're right. With these bitter rivalries, a lot of times you can just throw out the records, it's more to play for than these teams. They kind of get up for these kind of games, and with the game being in Atlanta, I'm actually going to give the Falcons the win coming off the bye.
So another disagreement there. I love it when we do it. Aaron Rodgers comes to town. Aaron Rodgers coming in with the New York high-flying Jets in the Atlanta Dome. The thing is I just think Aaron Rodgers is better than Atlanta, period. And I think the Jets defense is able to contain. I gave Aaron Rodgers and the Jets the win in Atlanta on this one.
Even if Rodgers isn't great this year, the Jets are really good at all their other positional groupings. So just when you look at matchup by matchup against the Falcons, the Jets are pretty much better at everything. So I'll take the Jets.
Yeah. Then Tampa comes in. So we get a 3-game homestand after the bye. I've got 2 losses and Tampa comes into town. I give them the win against Tampa because I told you I don't have a lot of faith in Tampa this year.
I'm actually going to give them the win here, too. I'm not super high on Tampa. I think they're going to be pretty good against this division, but I think the Falcons can be good enough to split home with the Buccaneers.
Then they go to Carolina. It's just a big divisional. So they got New Orleans, the Jets, then Tampa, then Carolina. They go to Carolina. I think Carolina's just a better team. I think they're hitting on cylinders by this point. We're going to definitely know what kind of team Carolina is this late in the season, but looking way out, I still think Carolina's better. I give Carolina the win in a close game.
I believe I picked Carolina in this game in our last episode.
Yep.
So, yeah, Carolina.
Then they play Indy. Again, AFC South teams, a lot of common matchups. I actually think Richardson's feeling pretty good. I think they figured it out. They've got Paris Campbell, who had the fastest play in the NFL last year. I like Indy in this one, even though it's in Atlanta. I think for me, that's kind of why I gave Indy the edge, because it's back in a dome. And again, I just don't think Atlanta's going to be that good. So I got Indy winning this one.
This is a tough one to pick, right? Because I'm not particularly high on either one of these teams. I will agree with you and give Indy the win in this one. Richardson kind of coming to Atlanta. He played his college ball in Florida. I'm sure he'll have a lot of supporters there at that game, so it won't feel like as much of a road game as usual. So give me the Colts.
Chicago, and this is the difference. Week 17, Atlanta goes to Chicago. We're talking December. We're talking cold. We're talking a dome team. I think Chicago wins this one.
I'm going to give it to Chicago also, similar to what I said about the Panthers. I think that the Bears are going to be an improved team this year, not a great team. And if they're going to be improved, they have to beat teams like Atlanta at home. If you lose those games, it's really hard to improve your record. So give me the Bears.
And the last game of the season will be against New Orleans. Not going to spoil anything, but I think New Orleans is going to have something to play for in this game. It's in New Orleans, and I have New Orleans winning Atlanta's final game of the season.
Yeah, I'm with New Orleans also.
Putting Atlanta on a 4-game loss streak.
Yeah, I mean, for some of the reasons you said, I think that this game could be meaningful for the Saints. I don't think it'll mean anything for the Falcons. And also, again, it's that rivalry for the same reason that I picked Atlanta at home in their first matchup. Give me New Orleans at home in the second one.
And there you go. We both have a couple games different, but same result at the end. Probably good for last in the division. Do you agree with that?
5-12 sounds about right for the Falcons. It's going to probably be another tough year. They need probably another year or two to complete this rebuild.
Yeah, I agree with you. Do you agree with us? You probably agree with Adam more than you agree with me. That's to be expected. Thanks for joining us on That Effin' Sports Show. Let us know how you feel. We're going to keep rolling with the NFC South as we take a look at every NFL team before the season starts and try to predict who's going to be there. We are definitely in agreement that Atlanta won't be. Hopefully you'll be there for our next show where we run down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Join us at That Effin' Sports Show, at That Effin' Show, EFIN Show on Twitter. Go find Adam at Adam Hulse Sports on Twitter. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
I get off to the thought of proving everyone wrong. I won't stop to the top, so you better back off and get lost. I'ma stay loud, stay proud, never running out, never heading south. I'll be spreading out, call it word of mouth. Can't put me down, I'll be getting loud. You can have it douse, not what I'm about. Have your cloud, it be raining now. I keep making sound, go another round.